All right. Well, the Supreme Court in the United Kingdom has ruled that trans-identified men are not legally women. And in fact, you have to be a real biological woman to be a woman. The court unanimously ruled that the terms woman and sex in the 2010 Equality Act referred to biological sex, not self-identified gender. Here to discuss is Lois McClatchy Miller, who has been speaking out against this and is jubilant on her X account, and I'm celebrating with you. So tell us what this means, how big this is, and are you surprised?
Well, this is the ultimate what is a woman case. And the court has answered loud and clear with a unanimous verdict. A woman is somebody who is defined by biological sex and biological sex only. A piece of paper and a claim to being a woman is not enough. A woman is a woman and no man can become one. And so this is incredible. It's been a real journey in the UK that we've seen over the last 5 years. There's been several cases that have shifted the tide and made people think again about this very damaging, very harmful ideology that puts women at risk in safe spaces when it comes to their locker rooms, changing rooms, sports teams, prison cells, rape crisis shelters, and you name it. And it's also an ideology that has infected the minds of our kids and put them in danger. And they look at their bodies and think that they're born in the wrong one and that they have to take drugs and chemicals and scalpels to fix themselves, which is, of course, nonsense and, of course, entirely damaging. So this verdict today really solidifies that absolute truth that we know, that sex is how you define man and woman. There's only one man and one woman, and they cannot become one another.
What about getting pregnant? Because I was really hoping, with this shift over the past few years that I could get pregnant. I've been hearing a lot of liberals in the United States under the Biden administration, like normalizing the idea that I could even breastfeed. I could get pregnant. But the Supreme Court now also, it seems, recognizes pregnancy. That they crapped all over my plan.
Sorry.
Lois, sorry.
Had you been trying to get pregnant as a man?
Yeah, really trying.
Unfortunately, even if the Supreme Court had said today that men could be women and that men could be pregnant, the biological reality, I'm sorry to let you know, is that you could never have. And that was one thing that the campaigners in the UK
That's a microaggression.
really held on to.
Sorry. That's a microaggression. No toleration for that.
Well, you know what? Sorted out with the Supreme Court. Their words, not mine.
But I didn't mean to make a joke about it, but specifically, really, they do recognize in these provisions now at the Supreme Court that biological men cannot become pregnant. That's the law of the land now.
Well, this was referenced because the case dealt with what's called the Equality Act piece of legislation in the UK. It gives protection to people based on their characteristics. Okay, it was very controversial at the time, but it's been our law for the last 15 years. And so it provides protection from discrimination on the basis of sex, on the basis of religion, and the basis of race, etc. And then the big question that the court had to answer was, how does this protection on the basis of sex relate to men who claim to be women? Can they get the same protections as a woman who's born a woman? And as the court was dealing with these different aspects of being a woman, they said, well, one of the aspects that comes up here is a woman can claim discrimination on the basis that she's pregnant. If she was fired because she was pregnant, she would have a claim to discrimination on the basis of her sex. And that's something that a biological male could never claim. And they drew that as a distinction between the two sexes and saying we can't have the same laws between women and men claiming to be women because their bodies are just different. They have different needs and they face different discriminations.
Now, how can the United Kingdom, though, come back through the looking glass? Because we now have self-ID. There are men who have identities or IDs that claim that they are women, even if they're not. And so they claim they can use that to access spaces. We saw after Trump was inaugurated that in Florida, at least, there were some trans-identified men who had their passports revoked and replaced for their biological gender. But I don't think Keir Starmer has the appetite to do anything of the sort. So do we have any kind of hope that that might happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Women's spaces will now have a lawful claim. They did already, but they now have an entrenched legal claim to say that their spaces are for women only. This case actually came out of a time in Scotland, you may remember, where we had a male double rapist put into a woman's prison cell because he claimed to be a woman. And this sparked outrage and fury on the behalf of those vulnerable women who were going to be forced to be sharing this space with someone very violent with a track record of violence against their sex. And so we've kind of come from that place, and that I don't think we'll be seeing much of that happen anymore in terms of males going into women's spaces. That's already been kind of flushed out of the system in terms of social rejection of that phenomenon. And now we can look to things like women's changing rooms, women's sports teams. They're going to have a good foundational basis to say, look, this is for biological females. This is about protecting opportunities, dignity, and safety for females in the United Kingdom. And we have a basis in law to protect that.
It's amazing. It really is earth-shattering. I mean, this is as big as it sounds.
But some of the opposition to this, that people are saying, oh, this is really going to hurt men's feelings and young boys' feelings who want access to men's spaces. And I think back to the last time I was in London, I took my daughter to the Stranger Things play, and there was a big burly man in a sequin dress, and it scared her, and she wanted to leave. And
but it was in the bathroom.
It was in the women's bathroom. And she said, let's go to the other one. This is too scary. And so whose feeling are we prioritizing here? You have to choose sides, unfortunately. So what is the rationale? Is it just women who are addicted to being advocates and see themselves as elevated because they can advocate for these people?
So I don't think it's about choosing sides. I think it's about choosing feelings or safety. It's about choosing feelings or
Right.
truth. It's about choosing feelings or
Good point.
someone's dignity and privacy. And there's the Supreme Court judgment is very clear that they don't want this to be about picking sides, and they're very clear that there should be no discrimination against people who identify as trans. And I think nobody is wishing any side harm at all, or wishing that anyone has less legal protections. What we're saying is that on the basis of sex, when females have a right and a claim to be discriminated, to reject discrimination, then they should be able to do that. So they should have their own spaces. They should have their own rights when it comes to pregnancy, maternity leave, being in the workplace, all the things that females need to go through life in the United Kingdom without facing discrimination. They should have, and they should have that in a protected way. So it's really exciting to see the UK lead on this. We now look around the world and we hope that other countries, across the Commonwealth. I've just been back from Australia, where I've seen, this kind of woke mindset really take hold, and they've got their own case upcoming to challenge this "what is a woman" question. And so we're kind of turning our eyes over there now to see, will they follow and establish this fact that being a woman is a biological reality, or will they buy into an ideology which is harmful as well as untruthful?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, Australia, New Zealand, really gone the way of the woke mob, unfortunately.
Yes, but the UK, I feel like too, and it's so encouraging to see this. You're right that they're leading this when they led the charge for trans rights. So it's an amazing day. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us. Follow Lois at Lois McClatch on X and other platforms. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.